Well, at the top, let's broadly take a look at aviation development in Africa. What are we looking at when it comes to the status of the industry on the continent?
Alicia, Africa as a continent has about 1 billion people. There's about 700 aircraft that service these 1 billion people. One of the big issues that always comes to mind is that the average age of these aircraft is about 18 years. And these airlines in Africa, it's about 100 of those are scheduled airlines, and that's what we're dealing with. And those are the things that we look at. Obviously, we've got world-class carriers such as Egypt, SAA, Kenya, and Ethiopian. We've also got 3 members of the Star Alliance affiliate, being SAA, Ethiopian, and Egypt. So I think Africa is up there, and we're pushing hard on our bigger side with the bigger airlines.
Of course, when it comes to development of this sector, key to it would be finance and funding. Is the investment merit for African airlines solid enough to warrant this kind of investment?
Yeah, that's a complicated answer that comes with that, obviously. Things that plague African airlines are typically that airlines are undercapitalized, there's low profitability, you bump your head when you look at finance in terms of sovereign risk, you land up with political interference. Those kind of issues makes it very difficult for those airlines to access commercial lending in the market. In terms of the world-class carriers, such as SAA and the ones that I named, they typically are able to deal with some of the international banks. But for ECA finance, which is export credit-backed finance, which is not really aircraft finance, that's more sort of finance at the back of a government guarantee. So the Airlines Association for Africa have done a lot of work in trying to work in this model to get more capitalization into the industry. And you can look at that by saying that aircraft is part of infrastructure of the continent. And therefore, getting the development banks, such as the African Development Bank, etc., more involved in this to just unlock the potential and the value that there's in this industry.
Of course, it's in this context that we have the business models of the airlines themselves coming under extreme scrutiny, managing operational efficiencies, route development, distributions, strategies as well. Are solid enough models being put on the table from these airlines themselves?
I think so, definitely for the major airlines that we know in Africa. In South Africa, definitely the case. South Africa being a very competitive market with a lot of seats available in the market, therefore you can see the competitive rates that we're paying. I think anybody that can transport passengers efficiently and safe, as fast as possible, have a good business model, and they need to identify their routes and build it. But you need passengers, and you need to build your core passenger numbers. Without good numbers of passengers, it's very expensive to run these planes. So
how do they get to that next level? Where are we falling short?
Where are we falling short? I think as part of the continent, there's not a lot of disposable income, so we need to build that. We need to build opportunities to make it more affordable. Low-cost airlines are doing a lot in this continent, but once again, you need capital to buy the new aircraft so that you can get the operating efficiencies in terms of fuel, maintenance, etc., that makes it more affordable. If you fall back on older aircraft that Africa has been doing for so long, because of the cost of capital, then it's expensive.
What rate of lapse are we seeing on your side? So, we've got businesses coming to the fore, asking and applying for funding from your side of things. How many of those actually get finance secured?
I think the airlines with proper track records, which can show that they can run an airline and they can run it efficiently and look after the assets to get finance.
Okay, obviously they've, as I said earlier, being put under extreme scrutiny. To what extent, though, is some of the shortcoming in the current economic regulatory framework, so this pertaining to broader industry policy on the continent, presenting some of a challenge for these players?
I think the bigger issue in the continent is sort of the regulatory framework in terms of air safety and air traffic control. And I think that's holding back the continent per se. And our Civil Aviation Authority is working very hard because obviously, as you know, we are cutting edge here in terms of the regulatory environment. As together with the Airlines Association of Africa to get the airlines to modernize their regulatory environment. The problem is that sometimes the politicians that's involved is not directly related to the aviation authority, so there's a bit of a line of sight issue there.
Growth and scope for growth as you see it in this space moving forward?
Well, Africa's GDP is growing quite nicely. It's expected to have on average a growth about 4.4% per annum over the next 20 years. That normally results into a passenger traffic number growth of about 5.1. At this point in time, the multiplier is about 1.16, 1.2%. And the effect of that will be that we're looking at 800 new aircraft over the next 20 years in Africa. And you know, the fleet of about 700 should be doubled to about 1,200 in 20 years' time. So there is really a great opportunities and growth in Africa on the aviation industry.